They say that it's the most traumatic moments in our lives that have the most to teach us. I know that to be true. And yes, I'm talking about the time I lost my cell phone in Sweden. As to how that happened, let's just say that mistakes were made, maybe by myself. I'm only going for a week, I said to my wife. I'm not going to bring a suitcase. I'm not even going to bring my laptop. That might have been a strategic error. 8.5 hours later, I landed in Stockholm. I was a little jet-lagged. My hair was not great. But my hair is never great. Most of all, I felt free. I had a backpack, and that was it. I breezed through customs with a look on my face that declared I had absolutely nothing to declare. And I headed straight for the subway that I knew would take me to the center of the city. I ran up the escalator. I got there fast, so fast that when I stepped onto the platform, I realized I hadn't texted home to say that I'd arrived safely. The train was coming. I could feel the breeze. There was no time to text. I got my phone out of my pocket. I pressed that microphone. Landed Stockholm, I said. Pressed send. And it was then, and I don't know who, and I don't think it was on purpose, someone came up behind me, knocked my elbow, and hit my cell phone up and out of my hand and onto the track. There's a moment when I looked down and I saw it lying there. And then the subway came into the station. I actually heard it crunch. When the doors opened, I got on. What else was I going to do? And as I sat down, I realized that it wasn't just the directions to my hotel that were on my phone. It was everything about my hotel that was on my phone. I looked up at the subway map to see if I could puzzle it out. Now, there are some countries where you can do that, when you can look at a word and kind of sort of figure out what it means in English. Swedish is not one of those languages. It wasn't just that the subway stops didn't look like the names of subway stops, it's that they didn't look like words at all. There was Malmström and Karlström, and there was one that was just called Oog. Full disclosure, none of those are actual names of actual Swedish subway stops. I had no idea where I was or where I was going. It was like being lost in an IKEA, and not just because there was no exit sign. I must have had a look of pure panic on my face because the guy who was sitting across the subway car from me, he was completely bald, but as if to make up for it, he had this long, curling mustache. He asked me if I was all right. I'm lost, I said, as if it was my name. And in a way, it was. That was who I was right then. And as I said it, I realized how strange it felt, how weird. But it wasn't just strange and weird. It was, in a way, impossible. It was like the kind of thing that couldn't happen. But that was ridiculous. Of course, I had been lost before. When I was a student in the 1990s at the University of Toronto, I was lost most of the time. I didn't know what was what or which way was up, much less north. I'd just forgotten what it was like. I forgot who I am when I'm lost. And thinking of myself as a student made me think of my students. Now, I've been a professor for about 25 years, and for most of that time, I've taken students on one or another study abroad program. I've taken students to London, to Paris, to Guangzhou, to Melbourne, to Toronto. And in each of those different places, I say more or less the same thing. Look around, listen, be where you are. Now that sounds like a cliche, and in a way, it is a cliche, but it's also the whole premise of study abroad. The idea that going to a place, experiencing it, sticks with you more fully, more profoundly, in a more lasting way than just reading about it. And it used to be, for many years, that students had no choice but to do exactly that. It used to be that when you went abroad, you left your data plan, and with it, your phone behind. Not anymore. Now, your data plan goes everywhere, and so does your phone. And so the moment they step off the plane, students are on their devices, perhaps even more so than they are at home, because they're surrounded by the unfamiliar. That's a change I've noticed in them, and it's a change I've noticed in myself. Now, it used to be that when I was taking a student group to a location, I'd have to walk and then re-walk and re-walk again the route. I'd have to pay attention to landmarks. I have to memorize the names of streets. Because, take it from me, you don't know what it really feels like to be turned around until you have a group of 15 undergraduates right behind you wondering, are we there yet? Now I don't have to do any of that. Now my phone knows, and so I look at it instead of around. But not that day on that Swedish subway. That day I had no choice but to look around, which is probably why that guy who was sitting across the subway car from me, you know, the bald guy with the amazing mustache, he was wearing this huge winter coat, which is the kind of winter coat that everybody wears when they live in a city where you can just drive to the Arctic Circle. That guy introduced himself. "I'm Shell," he said to me. And for some reason, he spelled it K-J-E-L-L. In Swedish, he said, KJ makes a shh sound. I had no idea what I was supposed to do with that information. So instead, I just told him that I didn't know where I was and I didn't know where I needed to be. "Where's your suitcase?" he said. "I'm only here for a week," I told him. "I didn't even bring my laptop." "You're awesome," he said. And then he made the entirely reasonable suggestion that we needed to go somewhere where I could check my email. And as it happened, he knew exactly the perfect place, the most remarkable internet cafe. I was a little skeptical. I mean, how remarkable can even the most remarkable internet cafe be? But it was. There were tables everywhere and computers, and they had these amazingly designed white cylindrical chairs, which I'm pretty much sure is exactly the way that chairs are all going to be in the future. And you could order anything that you wanted. You could order coffee, you could order tea, or you could order what Shell ordered for us, which was herring and snaps. "Herring?" I said. "And snaps," he told me. "Schnapps," I said. "Snaps," he said. "You're in Sweden." Now, while we waited for it to arrive, I checked my email, and in exactly 8.2 seconds, I had all the information that I needed. And then the herring came with the snaps, which turns out to be a kind of flavored vodka that the Swedes drink with herring at almost any time of the day or night. And Shell taught me how to take a bite of the herring and then a tiny sip of the snaps and hold the two together in my mouth while the flavors collided and commingled and transformed into something rich and strange and uniquely Swedish. We had one, and then we had another. And we talked about his life and his city. We talked about my life. We talked about the world. And it was that moment that changed the way I teach. And it also changed me. Being lost is not about not knowing where you are. It's about discovering who you are in moments of uncertainty and exploration. And the thing is, those moments don't just happen anymore. You have to plan them. You have to be intentional about them. They take work. And if we're not willing to do that work, it's all too easy to default to the path our phones lay out for us in advance, to lose ourselves in that stream of information that follows us everywhere. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you need to go to Sweden and throw your cell phone in front of a subway. If, on the other hand, you've been listening to what I've been saying and thinking to yourself, you know, I should go to Sweden and throw my cell phone in front of a subway, go for it. It's not the worst thing that can happen, and you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised with who you meet. But don't do that. Do something. Educators, incorporate into your study abroad programs some moment where your students leave behind their devices along with their countries. To parents, incorporate into your vacation getaways some predetermined, pre-agreed upon moment where all of you take off from your devices as well as your home. And no, I am not saying no maps. I'm saying no Google Maps, no Apple Maps. Go on a quest with an actual map. Don't map quest it. See what you see when you look around instead of down. See what you say to each other when you have no option but to talk. And to all of us, let's get lost. Let's recover the lost art of being lost. Because if being a professor for the last 25 years has taught me anything, it's that the most profound moments of learning, those moments that stick to us, that change us, they happen when we're willing to take the risk to go somewhere that we have never traveled, boldly and gladly beyond any Google map. Wolfpack. I don't know if I did it correctly. I'll do it again, just in case we can cut it in. Go. Did I say go pack? Help me out. Everybody. Everybody. Go pack.